Fascism is so much like climate change. It's not one action or even a few. You can't call someone a fascist for an action, however fascists do things vaguely or in code to keep hidden. Like climate change, fascism is a long-term pattern of behavior that one has to be trained to spot or learn from experience. It's so easy to deny because people often only look at the short term. You have to look at the distant past and compare it with the present. Doing things similar to things a fascist did, like gun control or war crimes, does not make you a fascist, just as a hurricane or an unseasonably long or intense weather pattern doesn't make climate change. Being just racist doesn't make you a fascist. It's a combination, a nihilism, a mythical past of greatness, a constant liar or breaking from reality to truth so nothing can be known for certain, and abuse of language and definitions, accusations of the other side of doing exactly what you're doing to blunt the impact when they call you out on it. It is an attack of the other side as all-powerful and violent, yet at the same time weak and stupid. Getting glee out of and idealizing violence, or not agreeing with violence but sympathizing, enabling it, because you just hate the other side blindly. It's an appeal to misogyny and toxic masculinity, and blaming changing norms on feminism, women, the evil godless heathens, or communist or capitalist Jews. It's a blind fear of an outgroup, but using laws and phrasing to make it believable that you aren't racist, you just care about law and order. It's a hatred of the left at all costs, believing them monsters because you don't really know what their real opinion is because someone got to you first and told you what to believe about them, and since the left is diverse and complex, you view that as sneaky. It is the injection of falsehood into the dialogue and helping the spread of conspiracy theorists just so that no one can have a conversation anymore where you have the same basic facts to start from in agreement. To study climate change, you have to look deep into the past, ice core samples, in hard-to-reach places. To study fascism requires knowing your history of how fascism rose to power, something we were never taught in schools to know and be aware of. What old terms used to mean, and how they seem benign now, but the fascist in-group knows exactly what you're talking about and can fill in the rest for themselves. Fascism and climate change are counterintuitive and go against how the honest person's brain works. So they're so easy to deny and so hard to accept as really parallel with the nightmare future they present and the unlivable past. The powerful and the grifter use doubt as their key tool because it's so easy to doubt either. The powerful wish to maintain their power or wealth at all cost, even if it will hurt them in the end, so they will enable both and think they can control them only to find out way too late how wrong they were. The grifter nihilistically decides to back this horse and go all in, duping the gullible and making as much off of it while he can, because he believes the future is dead anyway. The pattern is clear for those trained to know what to look for. Scientists and historians are people specifically trained to look at the past and spot patterns in the present, but both are easy to dismiss, especially if they're more often on the left. Suddenly, they're elitists, snobs, or corrupted by academic funding, completely oblivious to just how meticulous and self-criticizing the academic system is to reduce as much error as possible. Being told something by a smart person, especially when one has no academic credentials, makes one feel weak. Being told your actions and those of your ancestors were bad makes you feel awful. Being told you have to make up for your past and work extra hard makes you feel pressured against your will, and you want to deny it. Having a con man tell you that no, you are good, it's the side telling you the truth that's bad, is exactly what you want to hear because the grifter knows how the human mind works. Our side is good, your side is evil. Polarization of a topic that should be bipartisan is exactly how both succeed. Pointing out pedantic or tiny flaws or straw men is exactly how people think that academics don't know anything. It is a victim blaming and gaslighting, flipping the script, and believing they, not the oppressed minority, are the real victims because they can't get over their guilt that they had no control over to accept their ignorance and not feel guilty, and instead turning that guilt into action, instead they go backwards and deny to avoid having to face the complexities of that unearned but natural guilt, and accept that it wasn't their fault, but they still benefited from the oppression. It is putting the opposition's actions under a microscope while diminishing your own crimes, just so you look equally bad, even though you are way worse. It's the police and the judicial system punishing the left more than fascists because they have sympathies. The only defense against either is to teach how science and history works, so you know you can trust it and what their limits are. how to spot a grifter and know the patterns so you don't get suckered by them, understand and have no delusions about your own biases, and train people to have empathy so that they never get swayed to jump on the bandwagon out of nihilism and use that knowledge they have to trick others with empathy, but ignorance of science and history, or their own biases to do terrible things, or just vote for fascism or climate change out of empathy. Lead, mercury pollution, smoking, fossil fuels, and even sugar all use these playbooks, but climate change and fascism are the very worst that can doom us all, and the only solution to either is constant vigilance and education, but also activism, networking, organizing, and fundraising, civil disobedience when necessary, using the law when possible, and never ceasing to be vigilant. We can't risk either. We must understand both intimately, and the solution to fixing both will be hard and almost feel impossible, but they will have to happen to survive as a species and to have any sort of future worth living in.